Hi, this is going to be the tarot reading for the sign of Aries for the month of October 2020. So if your sun, moon, or rising or part of fortune sign is in Aries, then this reading's for you. Start off with, I'm going to just clear the energy in this space. Um, this reading is primarily going to be using divination tools such as tarot. But as a preliminary discussion, I'll quickly mention a few things about the astrology of the month, like the actual astrology of the month. That's and I'll also roll the astro dice later, but that one's a bit more random. It's more yeah, chance based than astrology, which is basically set in stone. Like you can't really change which sign the planet is going to be in, this month, right? It's going to be in whatever sign it's in. Yeah. But with tarot or astro dice, you can basically roll and get all kinds of different scenarios and stuff like that, right? So anyway, but yeah, I'll talk about the astrology briefly. Essentially, at the beginning of the month, there's going to be a full moon in Aries, and well, what this means for you, Aries, is that this full moon is activating your first and your seventh house. The first house represents the self. It's the house that most represents you as a person, like your character, your level of intelligence, your personality, your how you react to the world, how other people see you and react to you, right? And the seventh house is the house that opposes the first. It's the house of partnerships, relationships. It's a house of open enemies. It's a house of partnerships, relationships, and open enemies are its primary significations. It also represents marriage as well. Um, So essentially what this means is that the full moon is going to be in Aries, and it's going to be directly opposing the sun in Libra. You know, so the sun is going to be in your seventh house, and the moon is going to be in your first house, Aries. So what this means is that there's some sort of so for some of you this could mean a potential conflict between you and a partner, or you and a romantic partner, or you and an open enemy. And for some of you, this can mean reconciling, getting better understanding with a romantic partner, um, um, you know, um, taking your relationship to the next level, stuff like that, right? Or starting a relationship or something like that, right? And for some of you, this can mean like reconciling with open enemies, or at least gaining somewhat of a truce with them. Um, so yeah, like essentially like the way full the way like a full moon operates. A full moon is in opposition between the sun and the moon. The way a full moon operates is it essentially like there's always like a potential for conflict or greater harmony between the two houses involved, because the two houses involved always oppose each other, right? So essentially, like depending how you play this out, and how the choices and the actions you make, um, you can have more common ground with partners, enemies, or um, relationship partners, right? So, or you can, depending on the choices you make, you can have greater conflict and add, fuel to the fire in these situations, right? So, depending on the choices you make, it's gonna, determine how that plays out for you. So that's just a little bit of an astrology um, uh, forecast for the month. I'm not gonna really do much else for this month for astrology. But probably in later videos, I'll probably kind of integrate the two of them. Maybe like do like part of my forecast, like the astrology of the month for each sign, and then I'll do tarot readings as well, which I think is a pretty cool idea. So I might start that in November, but we'll see. For November's readings, I might do that a bit more in depth. And if not, then I'll probably do it around December or so. But yeah, it's definitely something that I'm kind of planning for right now, kind of figuring out how I'm going to do it and all that, because I haven't really seen it done before that great. I've seen it done somewhat. I've seen it done okay, but yeah, I think I can definitely um, do something interesting with that. So yeah, but not this month. This month I'll just go over like the full moon effects for each sign, and the new moon effects as well for each sign as well. I'll do. So essentially, yeah, that's the full moon that I went over just now. So the new moon is going to be this month, later in the month. It's going to be around. It's going to be towards the end of the month anyway, um, or the middle. I think around like the 16th, 17th, something around there. Will be the full moon. Will be the new moon. Like I said, the full moon in Aries was at the beginning. Is at the beginning of October, and the new moon in Libra is going to be towards the middle of October. Well, what this signifies for you, Aries, is your new moon for the month is occurring in Libra, which is your seventh house. So this indicates, and moreover, this is a very lucky new moon actually too, because the new moon is like closely conjunct Spica, which is like one of the most fortunate stars in astrology, right? It's considered a star of like riches, wealth, and um, prosperity and all that. So it's a very lucky new moon in Libra this year. Very lucky, because it's unusual to get a new moon that closely conjunct to Spica, because it's within about 1 degree of Spica. So, they're 30 degrees in Libra. So, and there's only one Libra new moon generally every year, right? So, really, that doesn't happen very often. Yeah. To have the odds of a new moon happening that closely conjunct Spica is like roughly 1 in 30. Yeah, so it's yeah, it's definitely unusual. Um, so it's definitely quite lucky to have it conjunct Spica like that. So what this means, Aries, is that this new moon is occurring in your seventh house, and as I said, the seventh house represents partnerships, it represents relationships, and it represents open enemies. So essentially, this means that for you, Aries, there is the possibility around the time of this new moon of, say, starting a new relationship, or finding a business partner, or reconciling with somewhat with open enemies. You know, so like but it's a lucky new moon, so there's going to be opportunities, but the choices that you make, and yeah, and all that, and how you act, and how you you know how conscious you are in the situations, right? And the opportunities that are presented to you, it's gonna change how you know how this manifests. Yeah, so you can make it a very lucky time for new beginnings in those areas that I mentioned, or you can let the opportunities pass you by, right? So it kind of depends on it depends on your mentality and the choices you make and all that. So yeah. Anyway, I'm gonna start with the rolling the astrological dice um, to find the astrological influences for the month. Um, hmm, okay, we have Jupiter and Sagittarius in the 12th house. Huh. Hmm. Not bad. Not bad. Jupiter is in its home sign in Sagittarius. That's good. Hmm. It's hot up in her, geez. Anyway, yeah, Jupiter's in its home sign in the 12th, in its home sign in Sagittarius, I mean. And it's also in the 12th, the 12th house. It's not that great a house, but it does correspond somewhat to Pisces, which is the 12th sign of the zodiac, right? So it's not it's at least there's somewhat of an affinity there, right? Essentially, what this means, Aries, is that during the month of October, um, there are going to be opportunities presented to you. Um, Opportunities for expansion, opportunities to gain wealth, opportunities to improve yourself, for self-improvement, opportunities for to integrate parts of yourself or parts of your life. So with Jupiter in Sagittarius in the 12th house, though, these opportunities are they're likely going to be coming from areas that may not be that you may not that you may not normally have opportunities like that come from. So essentially, the 12th house, it represents seclusion, is one of its significations. It represents spirituality. It represents the unconscious. It represents the subconscious mind. It represents psychic abilities. Um, it can represent hidden enemies. Um, yeah. So essentially, this means is that this indicates that for you Aries during the month of October, there's going to be opportunities to expand and opportunities for to gain wealth and opportunities to gain um, improvement on yourself, self-improvement, right? Expansion, integration, things like that. Opportunities for those things regarding spirituality. So like for those of you that have, spiritual practices like yoga or meditation, for those of you who may practice the occult, for those of you who may practice astrology or divination, things like that, then you have opportunities to expand in these areas. And for some of you also, you have opportunities to expand in seclusion as well. So say if you may have opportunities to expand in when you're alone, right? You have greater opportunities when you're alone. And yeah, um, than usual. That's not to say that you have to necessarily be alone the whole month. It's just that because there's going to be opportunities, for relationships as well. With the full moon, with the new moon in your sign in Libra, I mean the seventh house. So not your sign in the new moon in Libra, which is your seventh house. And it's like I said, it's a lucky new moon, so there's going to be opportunities for new partnerships or relationships as well, or to reconcile, like I said, of open enemies. Um, so essentially, what this means is that um, if you combine those significations, that indicates that a balance has to be struck. Say if you get into a new relationship, you don't want to spend all your fucking time with the person, right? You want to have your own life, and you want to have your own, time to yourself. You want to have your alone, quiet time, so that you can, do your thing and all that, right? Because otherwise, you may miss opportunities, that arise from you being alone, right? So, with that being said, you want to have a balance between, spending time with a new person or spending time with people and having that alone time. Because if because ideally, if you can kind of make some room for both, then there'll be abundant opportunities for you coming in if you can keep your alone time while also making time for other people as well. Mhm. Moreover, it looks like there's going to be opportunities for greater faith and optimism, greater happiness. With Jupiter and Sagittarius in the 12th house, that could indicate that for you Aries, that um, there could be opportunities for integrating your subconscious, right, with your conscious mind, right, during the month of October, for integrating some subconscious thoughts or desires of yourselves into your conscious mind as well, right? Because generally, like a lot of people, like their unconscious desires and their conscious desires, they can be at cross purposes with each other, right? That's pretty common among a lot of people. A lot of people that can really get them into trouble. But I know a few people like that actually. But anyway, yeah, I've known a few people like that in my life. But yeah, essentially, like, so, you know, like I said, with these influences the way they are, it looks like there's going to be opportunities to expand your consciousness, and what's one way to expand your consciousness? Well, one way to expand your consciousness is to like integrate the parts of yourselves that haven't been reconciled with your conscious mind yet. Yeah. One way to expand your consciousness is, to put it another way, is to reconcile the subconscious parts of yourself, that maybe some of you have swept under the rug over the years, right? And you can, by reconciling those parts of yourselves and looking at them and examining them, you can integrate them into your conscious self. And you can kind of find a balance point between, those parts of yourself that you may not want to look at, and those parts of yourselves that you're not really fully aware of yet. And by examining them this month, you can kind of integrate those parts of yourselves into your conscious mind. And by doing that, you'll have less contradictions, and you'll be more self-aware, and you'll be a more conscious person. And if you're a more self-aware, more conscious person, then you'll be a better person, essentially. Like, essentially, the more self-aware and conscious a person is, the more, the better place that they're coming from when they make decisions and choices. Sorry, jeez Louise. Yeah, essentially, the more self-aware and conscious a person is, the better a place that they'll be coming from in making decisions and choices. They'll be able to generally act with more integrity, and they'll be more confident, and they'll be more effective in making change in their own life, in the world as well, right? But essentially, like, the less conscious and self-aware a person is, the more parts of themselves they're not even aware of, right? And when that happens in a person, then it can mean that they can do things that are morally quite they're morally quite toxic, right? And they can do these things to themselves, and they can do them to others too, right? So essentially, like, the less conscious a person is, the more parts of themselves that they're not even aware of. And when people aren't aware of parts of themselves, right, that essentially leaves a bunch of like it leaves a bunch of algorithms in your mind, a bunch of programs in your mind, applications in your mind, right? Because our mind is essentially a computer, right? A biological computer, right? So essentially, it leaves, the more unconscious a person is and the less conscious a person is, the more unconscious algorithms there are, or applications there are in the mind running in the background that the person isn't even aware of, right? And some unconscious algorithms are good, right? Like breathing, it's completely unconscious, we don't have to, really, like, we can consciously make our breathing better, right? Deeper, longer, all that stuff, right? And that's something you should definitely work on. Everyone should work on that, to have their breath be better, right? Breathing exercises, yoga, meditation, it's all great for that, right? But like I said, that's an unconscious algorithm that's playing in people's minds that's positive, right? But there are unconscious algorithms that are definitely not positive. They're playing in people's minds, right? Right. Like maybe they have certain desires that are fucking like really creepy, right? Yeah. And some people, like, that can that can basically destroy their lives, right, or their careers, right? So essentially, like, and moreover, some people unconsciously, they want to create drama or conflict with other people in order to, have more validation of themselves. Essentially, like, they'll try to create, some people, a lot of people actually, they'll try to create drama or conflict with other people just as a means of getting attention and validation from that person or that group of people, just from getting that, the people that they're in conflict with's energy, right? Essentially, it's, a lot of the times people, they're always, involved in drama and all that stuff. you know it's essentially, it's a cry for help almost always. And it's just a means to, it's basically the person saying, please look at me, please give me attention, please validate me, please, right? Yeah. So, these are just a few examples of some unhealthy, algorithms that can play in people's minds, right? And, like, also, for instance, like in relationships too, there are people, that they may sabotage their relationships, you know, and they may do this unconsciously because, they feel, deep down, there's an algorithm playing in their mind saying that, that they're unlovable, that they're not worthy of love. So they'll sabotage the relationships that they're in, and, they may, push people away that would actually be good for them. So it's like, and, that's not great either, right? These are just a few examples of unconscious thought processes, unconscious algorithms that can play in people's minds, right? So, and these unconscious algorithms, they can really, hurt a person's life, because of these unconscious algorithms. There are people out there that wind up alone, you know, and they had, and, at some point when they were younger, they had opportunities, to not wind up alone, right? But they sabotage them through their own unconscious thought processes, right? And, and other people, they destroyed their careers, because of unconscious thought processes, right? So it's important, Aries, during this month, you have opportunities. Like I said, a lot of people have, a lot of people have parts of their mind that are definitely, that they're not really aware of, and other parts of their mind that they don't really want to look at, right? Even if they do have some awareness of them, right? So essentially, Aries, the thing is that, like I said, a lot of people have this, people that are fully conscious, fully self-aware, they're very rare. And, yeah, they're very rare. They're very rare people, or people that are even close to fully self-aware, fully conscious. They're incredibly rare too. Like, geez Louise, there aren't that many of us. Anyway, yeah. Um, but, for most people, there's definitely parts of themselves that, that they don't really want to look at, and for most people, there's definitely parts of themselves that, they're not really even aware of. You know, so, it looks like during this month you can have opportunities to reconcile those parts of yourself, Aries. You're going to have opportunities to look at those parts of yourselves. You're going to have opportunities to, examine those thought processes greater than usual this month, and to kind of, gain greater clarity and insight on them, so that you can, integrate them into your conscious personality. So, you can have opportunities to expand your level of consciousness this month, Aries. And, you're going to have opportunities as well, and to expand your bank account. Maybe for some of you, you're going to have opportunities to, improve yourselves, improve your health, improve your, situation in life, as well. So, but I would say, that, since the first house is being activated for you, Aries, during the full moon of this month as well, the first house is a house that primarily represents the consciousness of the individual. So with that being said, I think, in order to grasp the opportunities that are going to be abound in relationships for you, and partnerships, and perhaps reconciling with open enemies, and the opportunities that, for abundance, for greater wealth and happiness and all that stuff and self-improvement, in order to maximize those opportunities, I would say that if you want your level of consciousness to be on point, you know, so focus on your consciousness this month, and and focus on the balance between interacting with others and putting yourself out there versus having your alone time as well, right? So yeah, that's a preliminary um, bit of a forecast for the month. And now I'm going to go into the Celtic Cross Tarot card reading for October 2020. It's hot up in Hergeries. I'll also be pulling cards for work and career and money and romance for the month as well. So love, money, and career. Yeah. One of the cards stuck to each other, or two of the cards stuck to each other. I took the card that would have been the top card, that was the top card from the pile. Anyway, yeah, first off, I'm going to go over the Celtic cross reading for the month. Okay, well, first off, we have five, we have five trump cards right here, and there are 11 cards in the Celtic cross reading. So what this indicates is that this is a month of destiny for you, Aries. It's a month of karmic forces, good or bad, depending on which one of you it is, that are somewhat out of your control. You have some, so this, everyone has free will too, but the reality is that free will, it's something that's fate versus free will. The reality is that some things in life are fated, okay, and some things in life are you have free will. And for the people who think that everything that people have 100% free will, I don't know, to me, I don't know. Doesn't seem like, no. To them, I'd say, okay, if you think people have 100% free will, then what do you think a little person's chances, a person who's like, say, less than 4 feet tall, a dwarf, right? What do you think? They were called dwarfs back in the day, right? Little people, they're called now. Right? What if a little person wanted to get into the NBA? Do you think, because he has free will that he could, do that? What if he isn't even an athletically talented little person? What if he doesn't have athletic talent either? Right? Do you think he'd be able to make it into the NBA, no matter how much he wanted it? Yeah. The reality is, life isn't fair. For some people, it's more fair than others, right? And for some people, it's less fair than others. But you could say that you could say that there's an overall sense of fairness, above that on a higher level of abstraction, right? You could say that, if you look at past lives and all that stuff, and karma, and destiny, and all that stuff, and God's plan, all that stuff, and you factor all those things together, right? And then you could say, well, maybe the person who has it unlucky in this life, maybe that's to help them to evolve, right, faster, and to learn lessons so that they have more luck in future lives, right? And perhaps you could say that the person who's really lucky in this life, maybe they earned that luck by doing good things in previous lives, right? So that's just one way of looking at it, right? But anyway, like, and sometimes, like, even if you don't really believe in reincarnation, the reality is sometimes God tests people. Sometimes, like, if you look at the story of Job in the Bible, he had all these terrible things happen to him, right? And God let God let an archangel, right, um, test Job, right? And he let God basically let that archangel basically run amok in Job's life and basically really fucking put him through hell, because God really believed in his faith, right? So there's a lot of different variables at play, with luck and free will and fate and all those things. It's not simple and cut as dry. And cut and dry is saying people have 100% free will. They don't. It's not as cut and dry either as saying that everything's 100% fated. It isn't. For some people have more free will than others. You know, a person who's really talented, and really conscious, and say, they have a lot of other things going for them as well, right? Fucking person like that, they're gonna have more free will than a person with a lot less talent and less, gifts that they're born with or born into, right? But even still, people, they have, everyone has a certain level of free will. Some people have more than others, but in order to have more free will in your life, you can work on yourselves. You can become better people, become a better version of yourself, so you have more talent, or so at least not necessarily more talent, so that you achieve more of your potential, right? Because if you achieve more of your potential, then you can have more freedom to act, more freedom to make better decisions and make better moves and stuff like that, right? And to have to essentially be more effective in the things that you do, right? And moreover, if you become more conscious as well, then you'll have less blind spots. And like I said earlier, blind spots get people into trouble, right? So if you work on those things, like fulfilling your potential and becoming more conscious and more enlightened person, right, then essentially you'll have more free will than you will if you don't work on those things, right? So yeah, it's definitely, that's why, like, yeah, I'm definitely pro, self-improvement. I'm pro for people reaching their potential. I'm pro for people um, becoming more conscious, themselves and their actions and their thoughts, and all that stuff, right? Because it maximizes free will in people. I like that. I like people to have some autonomy in their lives, right? So yeah. Anyway, but yeah, essentially, this is definitely going to be a bit of a karmic month, though. It's going to be a month of, a month where, there's going to be, things there, where you may have less control than in other months, where circumstances and events happening, You may have some fated circumstances or events that, for some of you, they're really positive, right? And for some of you, you may have some fated circumstances or events that are less positive, right? And for some of you, it may be a mix of negative and positive circumstances and events that are outside of your control, right? So, it depends on which one of you it is, right? These readings are general, so like I said in the past that basically around 30% of the population has a sun, moon, or rising sign in Aries or part of fortune sign. Right. So that's a lot of people. That's like there are over 7 billion people on the planet right now. So that's roughly like, geez, that's that's around 2 billion people, right? So that's a fair bit of people. So I mean, like I said, for some of you, this is going to play out differently than others. It's not going to play out exactly the same for every 2 billion people of those Aries placements on the planet. So take what resonates and leave the rest. But yeah. Anyway, to start off with the reading, we have the Moon as the first card, which is basically where you're at in the present situation, Aries. The Moon. So Aries, it seems like leading into roughly at the start of October of 2020, it seems like you're at a turning point. It seems that you're at a place where um, it's where the dawn hasn't happened yet, but it's about to. Essentially, this card represents it represents the night sky before the dawn, the darkness before the dawn. It represents a final. It represents a final journey or a final doorway to walk through before being enveloped by the light, essentially. It's a card that's ruled by Pisces, and it's obviously called the Moon. So there's a correlation with the Moon as well. Um, the Moon is a very watery, planetary body. It's not exactly a planet. It's an orbiting object of the Earth, right? But that being said, it's more important actually in astrology than any of the planets are. It's only second to the sun in importance in our solar system, in an astrological sense anyway. The Moon represents psychic and intuitive abilities. So Aries, it seems like during October 2020, you're going to be more psychic and intuitive than you usually are. This is a very watery card, so make sure you're well hydrated. Make sure you're drinking plenty of water every day. From my understanding, most people, they should be drinking, it depends on weight, right? Like obviously a person who's like 200 pounds, they're going to need more water than a person who's 100, right? So, but from my understanding, a person of average weight should be drinking at least around 2 to 2.5 liters of water every day, at least, from my understanding. But you probably want to look this up yourselves and all that stuff and factor your weight into it, right? Because they'll tell you how many cups you should drink bare minimum, based on your weight and all that. But the sources on that, and the opinions on that vary. But I think it's better to drink a bit more water than some of those bare minimum sources say. But that's just my opinion. But if you do that, you have to take in a bit more salt as well. And for that, I use Himalayan salt. I always put some in a cup of water. And I'll drink that, because I drink a lot of water every day. I drink like at least 4 liters or so every day. But I exercise a lot too, like a lot. So, yeah. I lose a lot of water that way. So especially, yeah, too, if you work out a lot, you need to drink a lot more water than usual, and you need to have a higher salt intake as well. So these are all factors, that water retention and drinking water, staying hydrated. These are all factors that you have to take into account depending on your situation, right? How active you are, how much you're drinking, how much water you're drinking, right? If you're drinking, if you drink alcohol too, that'll fucking dehydrate you, or caffeine will dehydrate you too. The diuretics, right? So fucking, and you have to drink more water, right? So it's like there's a lot of variables at play with hydration, and having adequate salt and sodium balance, right? So these are all factors you should look into during the month. I think Aries intuitively, yeah, it's definitely something that I keep watch over. I kind of monitor with myself. I've made adjustments over the years actually. And it's definitely helped me. So yeah, intuitively, I'd say your water and your sodium intake and the balance between those two things and the proportions and all that, and look at how, look at your activity level and your lifestyle choices and all that, and how that may affect your level of hydration or how much sodium you may need to intake, right? It may be an idea during the month, if you're unsure of these things, to get blood work done. You get your doctor to fill out, like in Canada anyway, the recommendation to have your sodium levels checked, right? Do a blood test, right, for free, and you get those checked, and you can see if your sodium levels are adequate or if they're low or too high, right? And you can make adjustments accordingly, right? So I mean, talk to your doctor. I'm not a medical professional. I don't profess to be. I'm just giving you some things to look into yourselves. Okay. I repeat, I am not a medical professional. So talk to your doctor, talk to your healthcare practitioners, for God's sakes, and do the research on your own as well. Because it's your body, your health, your life, your lives, right? So, you know, yeah, I'm just kind of giving you a little bit of insight into that, the things you can look into, right? And things you can ask about. So definitely look into it yourselves and ask the appropriate professionals. Just that, just to get that out of the way. Yeah. Anyway, I studied finance for 2 years. I understand something about liability. Jeez Louise, fucking. Anyway, yeah. Uh, for card number 2, which is surrounding you, we have the devil. This card number 2, it's essentially called what surrounds you during the month. Essentially what this indicates, this card indicates it can represent your environment. It can represent the people around you and the events and circumstances that are happening around you, Aries. So having the devil in this card is interesting. Well, an obvious interpretation of it is that you may have some negative people around you during the month of October, Aries. That's one obvious, pretty obvious interpretation of this card and this placement, right? Yeah, you could definitely have some negative people around you, and you could definitely have some people that, they may be trying to do some things that are quite negative around you. They may be trying to do things that are underhanded, things that are dishonest, things that are, you know, things that are against the law, things that are illegal. You could have some people around you, Aries, during the month of October that are doing those things. That's not to say that everyone around you in your environments, are going to be negative or doing bad things. But I'm just saying that an obvious interpretation of this card is that during the month of October, it's more likely you, Aries, are going to have people around you that are going to be either bad people or doing bad things or trying to do bad things to you. Um, Moreover, though, this card can also represent, sexuality as well. As you can see on this deck, the Devil card, it's depicted as the goat god Pan, you know, and as you see, there's two oval-shaped objects on the bottom of the card, and then there's a cylinder-shaped object um, protruding from those two oval shapes at the bottom, which is quite obviously a phallic representation, right? As you can see at the top of the card, you see here there's a ring around the top of the phallic shape, right? Which obviously it represents penetration, right? Sexual penetration, right? Penis and vagina, all that stuff, right? So essentially, this card, it is a card of sexuality as well. It's a card of sexual desires and heavy sexual attraction. So there could be you know opportunities for sex around you as well. During the month, and there could be people that are hornier than usual, people that are hornier for you than usual. Um, People that are attracted to you quite a bit during the month. There could be that as well. Um, there could be sexually frustrated people around you. It could be there's yeah. The devil in this position would definitely indicate that too. Um, for some of you, this could mean that you're a bit more horny than usual as well. I mean, this is more of a surrounding you influence. Energies around you, so that's not really gonna apply for that many of you. Hmm. But yeah, there's gonna be yeah, yeah. It looks like in your environments and all that areas, there's gonna be greater you know greater amounts of negative people around you, greater amounts of people doing bad things around you, and greater amounts of people trying to do bad things to you, right, during the month. But also, there's going to be you know, greater opportunities for romance, I guess, with people that are a bit more hornier for you than usual, Aries, as well. And perhaps some of these people, they may be one and the same. It's yeah. Well, depending on how I play it out, maybe you can get the better end of that deal rather than the worst one, right? Who knows? Let's see. Anyway, don't I rule as a tarot card reader? Like, geez Louise. How many other people are saying things like this? Like, geez, come on. I know the cards. I've been reading the cards for like 12 years now. Over 12 years. Okay. Yeah. I've been reading the cards for a while. So I know the meanings in and out. I know the finer details of it too. So yeah, that's why I started this channel, because I knew I had some like really good insights. So anyway, yeah, pat myself on the shoulder there. Anyway, this is the card that's going to be crossing you during the month, Aries. It's the Five of Cups. It's disappointment. That's what the card's called. So, the reality is that the crossing card, no matter which card it is, it's always going to be a negative influence. So essentially, the Five of Cups here is, it's not the best card to begin with, but the Five of Cups in the crossing position, it doesn't really make it any more negative. It's just kind of fucking, like, even like with a positive card here in this position, for instance, it would make it negative. But this one, it's already negative, so it's kind of, it doesn't turn it into positive. It just fucking doesn't really make it any less negative either. So essentially, during the month, Aries, It looks like, disappointment over something, or disappointment over loss of some sort, or disappointment over this card. Its planetary ruler is Mars and Scorpio. So for some of you, this could be conflict. It could be slowing your progress or blocking your progress during the month. For some of you, um, a fight or a dispute of some sort could be slowing your progress. For some of you, grief could be slowing your progress. For some of you, disappointment could be slowing your progress. But based on the rest of the cards in the reading, looks like definitely, you know, progress is still getting made, which is good. It's not a bad reading. It's not a bad reading, actually. Okay. It's good. It's not the best, but it's good. Yeah, especially with Jupiter and Sagittarius. Oh yeah, that's good. It doesn't matter if it's really in the 12th house. Fuck. Jupiter and Sagittarius alone is great. Fuck. Yeah. Yeah. Plus the other cards, yeah. It's a good reading. Anyway. For card number 4, we have the Eight of Swords. Hmm. Um, this is your foundation for the month, Aries. The title of this card in this deck is called Interference, the Eight of Swords. Um, the Eight of Swords is not the best card. Um, so, if this is the foundation card, this indicates that during the month of October, Aries, is that it's important in your foundation and to realize that like there's going to be interference at play, or at least some others perhaps who are going to be trying to interfere with you in your life, right? So, with that being said, recognize and take stock of how um, others may interfere with your life and what power they have to affect your life, right? And in some cases, other people may try to interfere with your life, but whatever they do, it won't do anything to you. You know, in some cases, it'll just blow up in their faces, right? Yeah. And for others of you, people, they may have more power to interfere in your life, right? It depends on where you're at, each one of you specifically, right, in your own lives. So it's important to recognize that during the month of October, Aries, other people, they're going to be trying to interfere in your life more than usual. And depending on what level of position you're at, and and you know, your level of your level of autonomy in your life, right? In some cases, these people, they may try to interfere in a negative way, but it won't even, whatever they try to do, it'll just basically bounce off of you. In some cases, it may even blow up in their own faces. But for some of you, others of you, if you're not as, if you don't have as much autonomy in your own life, right, then they may have more power to, influence things, right, for the negative, right. So just be aware of that. That other people that are going to be trying to interfere with your life more this month. Examine how much power they would have to interfere with your life if they did, right? Examine who you're giving your power to in your life, right? And if you do that, then because sometimes some people sometimes when people try to interfere with our lives, sometimes it's because we've given them power to do so. But that power can be taken away very easily, right? But in some cases, when other people try to interfere with our lives, it's just because they're able to. It's regardless of whether the person is giving them power or not. And these situations are on a case by case basis, right? So for each of you, you have to examine these things yourselves. And look objectively at where you're at and your level of autonomy and power in your own life and over your own circumstances, right? And basically, if you do that, then you can kind of have a better gauge, a better idea of how much other people, because like I said, open enemies are a theme this month, right? Because it's full moon in Aries, right? And the full moon is the opposition between the first and the seventh house for you, Aries, right? And the seventh house represents open enemies. So open enemies are going to be a bit more of a prominent this month for you, right? So examine your open enemies, right? And and gauge what kind of you know, if they try to interfere with your life, what can they do, right? Mm-hmm. In a lot of cases, though, the reality is, a lot of conflicts. A lot of people they'll try to create drama with other people, and all that stuff. But the reality is, in a lot of situations, you know, if you just continue to do you, yeah, if you just continue to focus on yourself and your own life and your own objectives, right? Then other people they may try to sabotage your lives and all that stuff. But generally, a lot of very successful people they have haters. That's a prerequisite to being a successful person is that you're going to have haters. Because in order to be a successful person, you have to be a special person. And if you're a special person, you're going to have haters. So the reality is, a lot of those haters, that's all they do is they just hate. They just try to tear down other people, and they wind up going nowhere themselves. Right? But it's the people who have all these haters but continue doing them, right? Those people who like, I'm gonna do me, right? Those people, they're the ones who are successful because instead of focusing on what others are trying to do to them, or instead of focusing on petty dramas, they focus on themselves and their own objectives, right? So you have to take that into consideration too. The reality is there are a lot of haters in this world. There are a lot of detractors. There are a lot of people who try to tear down others. There are a lot more people in this world who try to tear down others than there are people who try to actually create things, right? Which is funny, but it's ridiculous when you think about it. Okay, but it is what it is, right? So anyway, the reality is that there's a lot of people that are bottom feeders like that. They just try to tear down others, and they just try to destroy. You know, they just try to feed off of drama and shit like that, right? But those people, look what happens to them. They generally, they go nowhere in their lives. You know, and they just fucking, they don't create anything of value. They don't really do anything of value. They just stew in their own filth, you know, and they generally wind up miserable, you know. But the people who actually, who have the mentality of, I'm gonna do me, they're the ones who rise up. They're the ones who are creating. They're the ones who are pioneers. They're the ones who are innovators, you know. So, you know, think about these things, The reality is there's a lot of haters in this world. There's a lot of people who try to tear down other people. Those people generally go nowhere with their own lives. And those people generally sabotage their own lives, right? But the people who focus on themselves and focus on their goals and their dreams and what they're going to do for the world, right? Who focus on positivity and take instead of negativity, you know, it may take them time to get off the ground. It takes everyone who's successful time to get off the ground generally, unless they're super lucky or just, they're born with a silver spoon in their mouth or something, right? And stars were aligned for them, whatever, right? But generally, anyone who's successful, they start, somewhere here, and then they, gradually, step by step, build themselves up, right? And as time goes on, their life gets better and better, right? So essentially, that's a lesson, is that, it's a spiritual and philosophical lesson. It's that, if people focus on positive things and focus on creation, focus on bettering themselves, right? Focusing on bettering this world, right? Then good things will happen to them generally, right? And if people focus on trying to tear down others and try to focus on petty conflicts, then generally, their lives are the ones that wind up getting sabotaged by their own actions and their own pettiness, right? So, realize that, people are going to be trying to interfere with your lives more this month, Aries. And some of these people, like I said, surrounding you, there's going to be some negative people around you, Aries. But recognize the fact that, um, like, in a lot of these cases, these people, they're not going to have any power to do anything to you. But that's, for some of you, some of them will, but just for the most part, a lot of those haters, a lot of people trying to tear down others, they're bottom feeders themselves and they're losers. Yeah. And their actions will just generally, in a lot of cases, just explode in their own faces. So, just, excuse me? Yeah, I'm gonna do me. Thank you. That's the mentality you have for that. It'll get you further in life. But take note of it anyway. Okay. And examine it on a case by case basis for each of you, right? Be a good idea too. Anyway. Anyway, for card number 5, we have the Six of Swords. Card number 5 is what's behind you. Six of Swords is a positive card. It's definitely by far the most positive Swords card. The Swords cards in general are quite negative. And the Six of Swords is actually a positive card, so it's really the only positive cards among the Swords cards. The only other ones that are decent are just decent. There's not bad. But this one's actually good. This is the only good one. Well, I guess the Ace is good too. Can be good. It's generally good, yeah. The Ace generally represents greater clarity, right? Which is good. But anyway, the Six of Swords, in the past position, what this indicates is that leading up to October of 2020, Aries, and the title of this card is called Science. What this indicates is that leading up to October 2020, Aries, you gained a more rational outlook on life. You gained greater clarity intellectually. You perhaps learned new skills, new information came to light that helped you make better decisions and choices, right? And it seems like your thinking processes are more rational now, and you're more logical, and your thinking is, perhaps faster and more accurate, than before, which is good. Your thought processes are good leading into this month, Aries. For the Ten of Swords, we have for the crowning card number 6, we have the Ten of Swords. What this indicates, the crowning card, it's a variable card. It's something that may or may not come into play during the month. So essentially, the Ten of Swords here, So this indicates Aries during the month of October 2020. For some of you, the worst could be over during the month of October 2020. And for others of you, the worst could happen during October of 2020. And for some of you, a lot of you, neither of those could be the case, right? It depends on which one you are. Right? Um, but based on the rest of the cards in the spread and the rest of the influences, it seems like for most of you, the worst is going to be over in October 2020. The worst will be over. Will have been over, which is good. For card number 7, we have the Eight of Discs, or the Eight of Pentacles. It's called Discs in this deck. And the title of the card in this deck is Prudence. So what this indicates, Aries, is that during October 2020, around the middle of the month, you're going to gain greater material and financial stability. It seems like for a lot of you, you're going to gain greater proficiency in your work, in your careers, in your studies, whatever it may be, your job. You may gain greater efficiency in other endeavors of your life as well. By the middle of the month, you'll have come closer to mastery in whatever areas of your life you've been focusing on. So it could be your job, your career, school, whatever the case may be, right? And the spiritual practice as well, yeah, could represent that too. Yeah. So by the middle of the month, yeah, you'll have greater material, perhaps financial stability, abundance in those areas. As well, you'll be gain progressively. You'll by the middle of the month, you'll be coming closer to mastery in various areas of your life that you may be focusing on, whatever skills they may be that you're learning or trying to you know, um, integrate in your life. And it's definitely by the middle of the month, those things will be a lot closer to fruition, than they presently are, right? Which is good. So it means essentially progress, definitely progress by the middle of the month in whatever areas you're putting your focus into. But primarily, this card, the Eight of Discs, represent material matters, okay? Financial stuff like that, health, body as well. Yeah. So for some of you, you could be definitely in better shape by the middle of the month than you were in the beginning. Yeah. For card number 8, we have the Two of Swords. The Two of Swords. This card is card number 8. It's how you should present yourself during the month. Two of Swords, it primarily represents, it can represent being at a standstill. It can represent peace. It can represent harmony, thinking things over still. It can represent indecision, holding off on making a decision, um, holding off on making a choice, right? Still thinking of choice, right? So what this indicates is that during the month of October, Aries, you want to present yourself as wanting peace. You want to present yourself as wanting harmony. You want to present yourself as wanting, greater peace and harmony in your life, right? And this could be between you and other people. Like I said, open enemies are a bigger theme this month, right? So if you have open enemies, present yourself as being, wanting peace, in that situation, right? Present yourself as desiring greater harmony in those situations. And for some of you, this could represent, present yourself as wanting greater harmony in yourself, right? For some of you, this could represent present yourself as not willing to make a decision yet. If you're presented with some sort of choice, right? Present yourself as thinking it over, right? Or an opportunity, right? Present yourself as wanting to think it over, and needing time to do that. Yeah. For card number 8, no, card number 9, we have the Hangman. This card represents how other people see you during the month of October, Aries. So what this indicates, the Hangman is, its astrological rulership is Neptune. So for one, one interpretation of that is that during the month of October, Aries, people could see you as being more psychic than usual, more intuitive than usual, more receptive than usual, more of a channel than usual. That's for some of you. For others of you, people could see you as being more enlightened than usual, being more conscious than usual. For some of you, this could indicate that people could see you as being, as gaining greater perspective on things and circumstances than usual, right? And obviously, these descriptions I'm talking about, these interpretations, for some of you, several of them could apply at once, right? And for some of you, less will apply, right? So it depends on a case basis. So with that being said, like I said, take what resonates and leave the rest. For some of you, this could represent that you could be seen by others as being in a state of waiting, or a state of suspension, or a state of holding off on making a decision during the month. You could be thinking things over. Other people could be seeing that. And like I said previously, there's definitely going to be opportunities this month, right? So sometimes with opportunities, people, they have to kind of think them over and kind of all that stuff, right? So yeah. This is card number 10, and it represents your hopes, your fears regarding the situation, essentially. It's card number 8, adjustment. Trump number 8. So this indicates, Aries, that during the month of October, your fears regarding this situation are, this is also called the Justice card in other decks. This represents, that for some of you, your fears during the month are going to be regarding, well, are you going to receive justice or not? Is justice going to be served or not? Right? And for some of you others, it could represent that your fear would be justice being served, right? So it depends on your situation, right? And where you're at, right? And your circumstances and all that, right? But essentially, it looks like a lot of you, your fears regarding the month are going to be about fairness. And it seems like for most of you that your fears regarding the month is, are you going to be treated fairly? Right? Is justice going to be served? And those are your bigger fears this month, Aries. The final outcome card, we have the Hermit. Oh, for the last card, we have in the fears placement, we have, like I said, the Justice card. It's called Adjustment in this deck. Another signification this possible for some of you, is that during the month of October 2020, you could be scared of a Libra person or scared for a Libra person because the Justice card is ruled by Libra. I slide point that out. Yeah, some of you could be scared of a Libra person or scared for a Libra person. That's for some of you. It's not for a huge amount of you. That's one possible interpretation, right? Anyway, the final card, final outcome, we have the Hermit. So what this indicates is that during the month, by the end of the month of October, for a lot of you, you're going to be spending a bit more time alone than usual. Or for some of you, you may gain greater clarity and insight and wisdom. You know? For some of you, this could indicate that an older person may become more prominent in your life by the end of the month. For some of you, this could indicate that a Virgo person could become more prominent for you by the end of the month, because this card is ruled by Virgo, the Hermit. Hey, Isis. Hey, honey. Say hi, Isis. She's pretty cool, eh? Yeah. Anyway, yeah, it looks like you're going to have greater insight, greater knowledge, greater clarity, greater enlightenment. And with other factors, like I said, this is definitely a month where you're going to have, where it looks like for a lot of you, you're going to make better gains in your consciousness and your level of consciousness than would be attained normally in a typical month, right, Aries? So by the end of the month, you're going to be more conscious than usual, a lot of you. You have more self-awareness than usual. You can have more wisdom than usual. You can have a more wise heart than usual, a more wise and understanding heart than usual, which is good. You'll have greater clarity, insight, information. And it looks like for some of you, yeah. So it's a good month. Anyway, one other card here. It's at the bottom of the deck. We have the Ten of Discs, or the Ten of Pentacles. And the bottom of the deck card, essentially, it's a card that I'm putting in this month. I'm going to start using now. Essentially, it's a card that represents hidden factors that are operating in the background during the month. The Ten of Discs, it's a card of material manifestation. It's the biggest card of material manifestation. It's literally called wealth in this card, in this deck. It's the suit of pentacles in other decks. It's called discs in this deck. So essentially, for a lot of you, it looks like there's going to be energies or things or people or something, or circumstances operating in the background that are going to be they're going to be perhaps creating wealth for you, or creating or creating opportunities for that for you, right? Or working towards that in some way, or making steps towards that in some way. And for the romance portion of this reading, we have from the Romance Angels oracle cards from Doreen Virtue, which are quite good. We have the codependency card. Like I said earlier, if there's going to be opportunities for relationships this month, right? So if that really auspicious new moon in Libra this month, right, in your 7th house, or new partnerships as well, business partnerships, or to reconcile with open enemies as well, opportunities for those things, right? So that being said, like I said earlier, there's this, it's important this month that you find your balance between your alone time and your time to get out there and so that because generally opportunities for romance and stuff like that and partnerships they're not exactly come knock on your door, right? Well, maybe they do sometimes, but you have to be pretty special for that to happen. But, yeah. But anyway, um, yeah. I'm not gonna mention anything else about that. Jeez Louise. But anyway, yeah. Um, like I said, there has to be a balance. If you enter into new relationships or partnerships, find a balance between, like having your alone time and spending time together, right? And find a balance between getting out there and putting yourself out there a bit versus, having your alone time so that you can, work on yourself and work on, your, whatever objectives you're trying to attain, right? So like this card is called codependency, right? Codependency. And the reality is, and a lot of people in relationships are very codependent. A lot of people, they can't handle being alone, so they'll jump from relationship to relationship to relationship, and fucking, it's not even really fucking about the other person. It's about themselves. It's about something inside themselves that's missing. So they always need to be in a relationship because they're trying to fill a hole inside of themselves, right? That's that can't be filled up, right? So a lot of people are like that in relationships. A lot of people like that. So you know, you don't want to go to that extreme. You want to retain some level of independence, right? And your own time to yourself and for your objectives and that stuff, right? And if you do that, then you'll have a healthier relationship. You have healthier boundaries, right? And also, in the start of a relationship anyway, fucking, if you spend all your fucking time together, that's like, yeah, it's not the best way to start a relationship, right? Because it's kind of, you know, the reality is, for a relationship, it's better to kind of, limit the time you're with in the beginning a bit, somewhat, anyway. Fucking, depending on how much free time you have, all that stuff, right? But fucking, at least you put some limitations on it, and then fucking, as time goes on and you kind of build more trust, then fucking you can spend more time together, right? It's better to do that, than to kind of, jump into a relationship or a friendship or a partnership or anything, just fucking spend all your time together, from the get-go. That's not a good way to do it because you don't really know the person well enough to do that, right? So if you start off, with spending a bit of time together, and and do that for a while and get to know each other and build more trust, then the time that you do spend together, it'll be time that's happier and time that'll be it'll be more fun, right? You'll enjoy it more. You'll look forward to it more, right? In the beginning, and also kind of by having that balance between your alone time and the time of your new partners, and then you can build greater trust and connection, you know, and by doing that, and you'll be able to look at things, you look at the other person, look at your relationship, with greater clarity by having that alone time as well from the beginning, right? And if you do those things, then you can build a stronger relationship, in the long run, rather than you know, um, jumping in right from the get-go and just spending all your time together and just kind of a lot of those ones, they kind of fizzle out, because it's not really because they don't really know the other person well enough, right? And generally, because people like that, they have a codependent nature, right? And it's people like that, people that are codependent, relationships, they can't have a healthy relationship. It prevents them from having one because generally their relationships will always fizzle out and they'll jump to the next one, right? So, in order to prevent that, then if you have more space and more time to yourself in the beginning, and learn to actually be comfortable with being alone to an extent, if you can actually be alone, then you're ready for the relationship. It's actually, it's funny. The reality is, A person that can't be alone, they're not ready for a relationship. But a person who can be alone and is comfortable with that is ready for a relationship. It's funny. It's counterintuitive if you think about it only briefly, but if you actually think about it, it makes a lot of sense. Because a person, who can't be alone, they essentially crave validation from outside sources. Yeah. And that validation, once it dries up from an individual source, then they'll move on to the next one, right? But if a person who's alone, who can be alone and be comfortable with it, they can validate themselves. They don't crave validation from an outside source. Right? So that person, once they get into a good relationship, they can actually, be in it for the long haul because they don't need that external validation from a new source, right? Because they're secure and happy with themselves. Because happiness, and validation, it comes from inside. A lot of people, they search for those things from outside sources, from other people, from status or money or whatever, right? Material possessions, all these things, right? But they're never going to find it from those sources. Happiness and contentment and peace, comes from inside. And love of yourself, acceptance of yourself, validation of yourself, they come from the inside out. If you have them inside you, then you'll never need to get those things from outside sources. And you'll be in a much healthier place to enter into a new relationship or partnership with, right? Anyway, yeah, it looks like, this card is literally called codependency. So like I said earlier, have that balance if enter into a new relationship between having your alone time, having your you time, doing you, right? And having time with the other person, and also if you're in the process of, if you're looking to meet someone new, have your time, spend some time, getting out there a bit, and spend some time doing you too, your alone time too, right? If you have balance between those areas of your life, then you'll be better, right? You get better results likely, right? Anyway, for work, we have the Five of Fire, which is the Five of Wands in other decks. So this indicates in this deck is that this indicates that during the month of October, um, you have a lot on your plate, Aries. It says in this card, competing goals, bothersome details, and conflicts with others. So your work and career this month, Aries, it looks like you have a lot of coals on the fire. You have a lot of you definitely have a few things that you're going towards, right? A few things on the plate, right? So essentially, you know, what this indicates, is try to figure out which things are most essential for you, right? And which things are less essential, and give priority to the things that are more essential, essentially, right? In your work and career lives this month, Aries. If you do that and give more attention to the things that are more essential, then you'll be better off, right? In finances, we have the Four of Air. Time to rest or take a vacation is what it says on this card. Allow more time before making a decision. Meditation may provide answers. So your money and wealth situation during this month, Aries, this indicates that if you have an opportunity for, a financial opportunity of some sort, to allow more time to make a decision, or at least, think about it for a while and, give it some time before making a decision, right? Think it over. Um, Meditate on it, you know. And this is a swords card. It corresponds to the swords card. It's called air in this deck. But the Four of Swords is like one of the only swords cards that doesn't suck. It's not a great card or anything. It's it's not bad either. It's yeah, it's a decent card. Yeah, it's yeah, your financial situation with the Ten of Discs in the background operating, and with Prudence, the Eight of Discs, and the or the Eight of Pentacles, or the Eight of Pentacles in the near future position, and yeah, it's a good month for your finances overall. But yeah, for financial opportunities, think it over, sleep on it, all that stuff, right? Meditate on it. You'll be better off. Anyway, and for certain, some of you, for financial opportunities, definitely have the appropriate professionals look over it, you know, and all that, and that way, you'll be that way, if you do that, then you can, avoid potential conflicts or losses or things like that, right? And get a, so that, and to also ensure fairness and everything, right? And the needs of both parties are being met and stuff like that, right? Anyway, yeah, overall, this is a good reading, Aries. And yeah, if any of you are interested in personal readings, I do those. The link to that is in the description of the video. And for personal readings, they'd be done over Skype. And for personal readings, they'd be a lot more specific to your actual circumstances and situation. These are general readings, and like I said, there's over 2 billion people that these readings will apply for. So not everything I say in these readings is going to apply for everyone. But for general readings, or specific readings, I mean, if you order those, then specific readings, then they'd be a lot more specific. Anyway, yeah, I'll have a website coming soon as well, rogerthewise.com. And that's not finished yet. I have other things on my plate right now. I'm an Aries too. Anyway, yeah, yeah. Good luck during the month, Aries. It's gonna be a good month. And signing off. Oh, I'll clear the space in here. I'll clear the energy in here again as well. Just to, yeah. Yeah, that's a good way to end things. Anyway, signing off. Have a good one.